presenter today, to Weronika Warachowska.
Yes, hi, hello, good afternoon, good morning, dzień dobry. My name is Weronika Warachowska and I am PhD candidate from Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, Poland. And together with my two colleagues, Gábor and András from Corvinus University in Budapest, we were investigating on implementation of nature-based solution for flood risk management. We were focusing on social transformation and innovation. The next slide, please. The idea for the research emerged when we discussed different approaches in our countries to flood risk management in response to flood risk increase related to dynamic climate change. And we realized that despite similar background conditions, different outcomes are observed, but similar approaches and similar measures are applied in both countries. So we decided to analyze these systems, and we found out that innovation is needed in both systems to deal with increasing flood risk. We decided to focus on polders as an example of a nature-based solution for flood risk management, and our main objective of the research was to identify what drives or hampers successful polder implementation and successful flood risk management. We focus on two case studies on two polders, polder Golina, located in Poznań, in Poland, in Warta River Basin, and Tisarov polder, located in Tisza River Basin in Hungary. And these two polders are similar in terms of area and in terms of retention capacity, but huge differences are observed in the matter of the situation of their implementation. Golina polder, due to ambiguity of Polish water law and lack of formal regulations for establishing the polder, is a not fully operational polder. But even it was not formally regulated, its establishment wasn't regulated, it was used in last decades during the flood events. And in case of Tisarov polder, it is actually the example of successful introduction of innovation in flood risk management because it was a response for disastrous flood events in Tisza River Basin, and it is a fully operational, legally, formally implemented polder that was used to retain the flood water. And polder Golina and Tisarov polder were compared in four aspects mentioned here. We compared formal and legal conditions for establishment and management of polders, economic and social aspects of retention in polders during the flood events, and real impact to the environment of managing the polders. And unfortunately, I don't have time to describe all the differences that we identified, but in four analyzed aspects, differences were significant. So, basing on our research, we identified several hampers and drivers for polder implementation and innovation in flood risk management. And I would like to focus only on a few of them. These two first mentioned here on the slide are quite easy to be understood because we need clear rules and we need strong legal basis for implementation of polders to effectively manage the flood risk. And these clear rules should be supported by transparent economic analysis to justify the use of public financial resources. The third one is quite interesting because it's especially interesting for the Hungarian case because in Hungarian case the disastrous flood events was the starting point for changes, and this is why these clear rules and this strong legal and formal basis was prepared to establish and manage polders. And the fourth one is important in both cases, both in Poland and in Hungary, because the social pressure is important because in the end, the people, the local communities are the ones that have to deal with consequences of flood, have to protect their own property, have to protect their health and lives. So the social pressure to undertake the changes is extremely important in both cases. And I think actually in all cases related to flood risk management. So to conclude, there is a strong need for social transformation that can be understood as the general reform on flood risk management. And polders can be the answer for this need to innovate, but they are not innovative itself. They are implemented in various conditions in many different countries, but innovation can be perceived in creating a space for experiment, to creating a space in order to reduce the flood risk. And what I mentioned before, disastrous flood event is a strong driver to undertake the chances, yet it does not always evoke social transformation itself. It can start the changes in administrative systems, in this all background conditions to implement folders, but it is not transformative. And the last point, social transformation is a continuous process. This is not only the result of our research, but in general, it reflects the situation in research on flood risk management, because constant adjustments are needed because of increasing flood risk related to dynamic climatic change. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the talk. Are there any questions? Yes. How did you quantitatively assess the performance of the polders in a flood risk mitigation?
How we assessed that the polders were effective?
Yes, how did you quantitatively assess the performance of the polders in flood risk mitigation? Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we assessed it very broadly. We compared the real usage of polder during the flood event, because both polders were retained water during a few flood events in last decades. So we have real information about how these polders are useful. And we also performed economic analysis to assess was it worth it to establish a polder and to retain the water inside it. So from one side, we have real data from real flood events, and from the other side, we didn't model the effectiveness of polders ourselves. We have just data from the real life.
Thank you very much for the reply.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, then thank you very much for the presentation.